Her comics are now her comics are now in a permanent collection in the Library of Congress. So we're here at the U.S. Consulate, broadcasting again to all of the American spaces. My name is Amanda Roach Brown, and I'm the Deputy Public Affairs Officer. And it's my honor to be talking with Mrs. Barbara Brandon-Croft. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So what I wanted to start off with, the title of your comic strip is Where I'm Coming From. So I wanted to ask you, where are you coming from as it relates to where in the United States you grew up, and what is your family background that influenced you to choose this career path as a cartoonist?
I was born in Brooklyn, south from New York. Always lived in New York. I grew up with a family who was from DC and came to New York. And everybody in my family was born in DC. And I was born when we came to Brooklyn. Since then, when I was a baby, we moved to Long Island. So I grew up in Newcastle, Long Island, and went to school in Syracuse and came back. But the point is that my dad was a cartoonist, and my dad was one of the pioneer Black cartoonists in the mainstream press, and a whole host of cartoonists that were previously in the Black press in the 30s, 40s. And it wasn't until the 60s that my dad was two other cartoonists. No, my dad did the comic strip Luther. So I was kind of I was immersed in comics. You know, my dad worked all the time. He couldn't help himself. And so I saw it being done. I saw it was part of my life. It didn't even feel like it was something special because it was my dad. But that's where it came from. That's where I come from. And that's where I'm still coming from. So I had my opportunity to get a comic strip and I took it.
Great, thank you very much for that. I wanted to also, you mentioned that your father was one of the first pioneering Black cartoonists, and this is February, which is Black History Month, celebrated in the United States. So I wanted to ask you, as a Black woman, what is the significance of Black History Month to you, and how does that intersect with the work that you do?
So Black History Month used to be Black History Week, actually Negro History Week, back in the day. And I've known it all these years. But we make a big deal about it in the States because we have not had an opportunity to celebrate our heritage in the United States. We were kind of like on the side, you know. And so someone, I think it was 1927 or either whatever, but maybe I'm going back too far, in direct response to us not being in the history books, like African Americans not being in the history books, or just relegated to a paragraph to tell our entire story. We decided to make a week of it, and it turned from Negro to Black, and from week to month, and shortest month, but still we take that opportunity to just focus in on what our history has been. And my dad was part of history, and I didn't even know it, but I would become part of history as well.
Yes, you definitely are part of the history. We brought you all the way from the United States here to Nigeria during this special month because you are, an accomplished Black woman. I wanted to ask you also, what was the atmosphere in America like for Black people, for women, when you started cartooning and through the time that you had the syndication?
My syndication started in 1991, but I created the comic strip in 1982, and things didn't change that much in that period of time. So what I created was for a Black woman's magazine, and I thought it would be. Initially, I thought my audience was going to be talking to Black. I thought the readers would be Black women. So I came up with the idea of having women talking to each other and talking directly to the readers. And so I talked in a very familiar voice. I talked in how I would talk to my friends. And I talked about things that I knew would resonate with, that resonated with me and I thought would resonate with other women. But it wasn't until the magazine folded, so I didn't get published at that point. So in 1989, my dad got a letter from the Free Press, Detroit Free Press, asking if he knew of any Black cartoonists because they wanted to have their newspaper reflect their community, their readership. And and of course he knew me. So I had this comic strip and he said, do you want to talk about being a cartoonist? You're going to be one. And I took the challenge. I sent the very same strips that I sent to Detroit, for the initially made up strip. I sent it to Detroit and they liked it. Most of them liked it, but the person who was the managing editor liked it. It was the most important, because she started showing my strip, once a week, starting in 1989. And then I was able to get a syndicate. And for those who don't know what syndicates are, they kind of work as your agent. And they other newspapers, so you can build your readership. So that's how I grew, and that's how it happened.
It's interesting because you talk about that's a pretty long, 15 years is a long run, right? That you were able to continue to have this voice and shed light on this, unique aspect of American life. And particularly, I was wondering, during that time, so let's say from 1989 to 2005, was there a particular events that was difficult for you to reflect in your drawings, or was there something happens in the United States that you said, I must, make sure I depict this in next week's cartoon?
A lot happened during that time. A lot happened during that time. I mean, OJ, the whole, that had to be spoken on, and so many current events which I was able to do. So being a weekly, I could, I'm a read the paper every day. I love the news. I would always have I would always have something to speak on. It could have been elections, or it could have been tragedies that happened. I'm thinking of now I can't think of his name, but he was dragged behind a truck and killed. So it's by it was something that I needed to speak on. I needed to speak on every little thing that affected me and in the news, in the world, and I just took that opportunity to do that.
Great. We spoke a lot about how you initially started this because you were thinking you were going to be publishing it in a Black women's magazine. So that's how you came about choosing the characters being all Black women who are speaking to themselves, but also speaking to the audience. And that made me think of intersectionality. We speak a lot, we have this term now when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, this idea that people are not just one identity, that we have multiple identities that are defined by our race, our gender, our class, what have you, and they all intersect to form this unique identity. But you were doing this before this term was even coined. So why did you think that you had to, speak about both being Black and a woman, and what was the importance of making sure that you focused on both of those aspects in every week that you publish?
I think it just comes naturally because it is true. You are a part of everything, and it's like I think it's a universal chord, humanity. So it's what was bothering me could be very specific, but it would be something that other people could identify with because it was that truth of what I was talking about. So I find now, I did a talk and a professor was telling me that she showed my book to her daughter who was 13. And she's like, this could be written now. And this is a young white girl who just was enjoying it. And I'm like, even though I'm coming from that specific place, because I am a Black woman, it's, it hits, it can translate, it can cross cultures and ages even, because you speak the truth. It's a part of the humanity that we all should embrace. Yeah.
Great, and of course, you're here in Nigeria, so the question is, what are you doing here? We know, because we invited you, but we would love to hear about how your week has been in Nigeria and who you've been interacting with and what you've gained from your experience here.
Oh, this has been an exceptional experience, and I was blown away by the cartoonists that I met. We had a whole host of Nigerian cartoonists. I was unaware because you live in different parts of the world. You don't know what's going on in different countries. But I was unaware of the rich history of editorial cartooning here in Nigeria. And I had the privilege of meeting legends and speaking with them and interacting with them. And what I think we found out is that what their experience is here is very much what our experience is in United States. We all try to speak truth to power. We all try to shed light on corruption. And we all try to lift the voices of underheard people and are a lot of the things like economics and not so, what's interesting, of course, because I come from America, it's a everything is based on, a lot of things are based on race, everything, because it's American. And I just was it just warmed my heart to be around so many men of color and women who were editorial cartoonists. Never had that experience. I have a great time here. The people here are really great, very warm, very welcoming, and I just loved every minute. It's been very great. It's really great.
That's great, and of course, we would invite you to come back whenever you like. And then you also mentioned when we had a radio interview this morning that you discovered you did an ancestry test and there was a percentage of your DNA that is
Nigeria.
Yeah, that is
12%. Yes, 12%.
So
I
in
know
that
there-
itself, yeah.
Friends in Africa, but 12% Nigerian, and I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
Great, great. And then lastly, my last question for you, and then we'll open it up to the audience, is, so are you retired? Do cartoonists retire?
I don't really retire. I mean, I watched my dad, he worked until on his cartooning for as long as he could. He ended up having Parkinson's, so it kind of, which is a really hideous disease, but so his brain was there, but he couldn't draw. But you don't retire. And when my syndication ended, I thought I was going to retire, and I thought it was in my rear view mirror. And then with the election of the 45th president, I came back, and I did a lot of strips starting then until now. It just reignited it in me. And even though I don't have a syndicate, I don't have a newspaper, I don't have an editor, but part of not having an editor is really great because I'm free. I can say whatever I want and put it on the internet. Yeah. But I'm a fact checker at heart, and I've worked as a fact checker. So I keep to the creed of editorial cartoonists is that you speak the truth.
So what you write, what you draw now, is it still in the same voice of the women, or have you expanded? Okay.
I saved those women. I brought them back, and I started when I brought them back, I gave them like bags under their eyes and stuff. Because you get older, and then I was like, no, I'm not gonna. I don't like the bags, and so I'm not gonna do it to them. So they look pretty much the same. So they're still a reflection of me. But I brought them back to use them again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody from our audience here, or I know we also have an audience in various places around the country that have a question. So I hear. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Barbara, for this very wonderful session. My question to you, for many young people spread across our American spaces who are listening to me today. Some of them might be interested in starting out a career in editorial cartooning. Somebody wants to be an illustrator, cartoonist, what would be your advice to, say, a 20-year-old? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would, I find that the best encouragement I can give and, best advice I ever got is to keep drawing. You only get better. You only get better if you just hone in on your craft. There may not be places or spaces where you can take a cartooning class. I had a mentor. I mean, I had in my home. So I was privileged that way. And my dad, who at one point we were in the same paper at the same time. And somebody said to him, I think your daughter's a better cartoonist than you. And he said, she had a better teacher. Of course, because it was him. And I'm I'm at an advantage. I did have a teacher, but if you don't have access to that, and if you don't have encouragement from your parents, keep your notebook on the side, keep working at it, and you gotta read. You have to really read the papers. If you're gonna be an editorial cartoonist, you have to know what's going on. And unless you know the whole story, you can't really comment on it. So you just get better and better. So I just say keep growing.
And I want to add to that an advantage that young people have today that you didn't have is the internet, of course.
Yeah.
You can, there are free courses on everything you can imagine, including cartooning and drawing that are available online. And we hope that those who are in our American spaces know that they can take advantage of the internet, the books, everything that's there in that American space to pursue whatever your dream is, including if it's to be a cartoonist.
Yes.
Any other questions from our room here?
Thank you, Barbara, so much for being here. I'm wondering about the family connection and your cartoons and how they relate to your father's, and if you ever did things on the same theme, or if you've ever displayed your cartoons together.
I have. As a matter of fact, when my dad was still with us, I talked to him about how we had covered the same topics 30 years apart and how we should do a book. And he was like, yes, let's do it. I said, okay. I didn't know how to get a book made, so that didn't happen while he was here. But currently, I have an exhibit of our works, and this is the third iteration, and it's called Still Racism in America, a retrospective in cartoons. And so what we do have is my dad's comics, my comics, speaking about the same themes, displayed in a gallery. Currently, it's at the University of California, Davis Design Museum, and it'll be there till April. But all we do is put the dates, not even the date, the year of each strip, and what folks have come away with saying, I thought this could have been written yesterday. So hence the name Still. That's another thing that we spoke about in the workshops, about how the same themes keep coming up. And you find yourself talking about the same themes. And I think someone in the audience said, well, why don't you get any solutions? I'm like, that's not our job. Our job is to put light on it. And for you as a reader, as a consumer of what we've done, to do something about things. And so the fear is that history is being lost. And for us to show things that my dad did in the 60s, and to show things that he did in the 70s and the 80s, what I did in the 90s, and ongoing, and it's still the same topic. It's pretty revealing and necessary. So I look at that exhibit as being an education. So I don't know where it's going to be next, but it's out there now, and I hope to keep it traveling.
Great, thank you very much. And you mentioned that someone said, well, what are the solutions? And you said, well, that's that's for you to decide, and I like that point because we were talking earlier about how cartoonists and cartooning is vital to democracy. Because there's such a unique role in which you're presenting in a very succinct way what the current issue is, something that's affecting citizens. And if we're hoping, right, the hope I assume as a cartoonist is that you're going to ignite something in the reader, and the reader is then gonna be an active citizen and think about how they're going to come together to either demand more from the government or work in their own community to find a solution. But cartooning really does have a place in making sure that we're all active citizens.
Yes, I hope so. That is the hope, that we do that.
I have about 2 questions, yeah.
Okay, we'll go to you.
Yes, I have one. The question is, are there specific training stroke mentoring opportunities available online for young people in Nigeria on editorial cartooning? And the second one is, what would you suggest is the fastest route to get noticed in the world of cartooning? Like you.
Thank you. I probably cannot answer the first question because I don't know what's available here. But YouTube, that would be my first place to start, to find out if you can, just, put in the search cartooning or beginning cartooning. That might be helpful. And I was all ready to answer the second question.
The fastest way to get noticed in the cartoon.
Yes, sorry. I would say the internet again, because here I am now, not with a syndicate, not in any specific papers, but I am getting exposure because I'm putting my work online. And so I put it on Instagram, but there are other websites that cater to cartoonists, and you can have subscriptions. So people, if they like your work, they can subscribe to your work. I think that's the fastest way to be noticed. Cartoonists are kind of like, they do their work in their homes, on their desk, by themselves, they're kind of anonymous. So it's, if you can get your work out there, your work might be recognized, but don't expect to be recognized as the person.
There's a hand raised from Oka. Oka, please, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
So, there are so many young people in Nigeria who are looking to explore a career as a cartoonist. So what's your advice for them? How should they go about it? And then having it syndicated, like as nationally, maybe in Nigeria or maybe outside Nigeria, having that work being syndicated. So what's your opinion or your advice on that?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's difficult for me to say, the best way to do it in Nigeria, because I don't know. I've learned so much since I've been here about how others have gotten started. I think having a mentor is really great. Maybe even try to reach out to some of the cartoonists that you admire. There seemed to be an energy in the workshops of wanting to keep cartoonists alive, particularly in Nigeria, and maybe look into seeing a way to reach out to them and see if, I think mentorship is really would be very helpful.
Any other questions from online that you can see right now?
There's none for the moment.
Okay, we have some more questions here.
Thank you so much for coming to Lagos to share your experiences with us. I noticed that you are very optimistic. Either you laugh or you cry about situations and you manage to laugh about it. How do you have that resilience? And do you have any guidance for us?
I find that I came here this way, you know, that I was born and I had a certain sense of optimism. I can remember, as a kid, you know, we talk about issues in the home, you know, when we had to be home for dinner at 5 o'clock every day. We talked about world issues, we talked about, United States issues, and I can remember saying to my dad, I was like, you know what, when I get older, I am going to heal this world. I am going to change all the wrongs. And he's like, slow down, you know, slow your roll. You know, what I realized once I got older is that he was not trying to be discouraging. He was really trying to protect me, you know, from what I was going to be facing. But I always feel like there's another chance. There's another chance to make these points, point these things out, and you know, Jesse Jackson coined the phrase, you know, I keep hope alive. I really do. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. This is a personal question. I have 2 kids, and I wanted to probably if you can share your growing up experience. All their notebooks are full of cartoons,
I love
all
that.
kinds of characters. And they would take, while they're writing their notes, they will skip to another page and start drawing Hulk, all these cartoons and so on. And at the end of the day, we kept wondering what is this all about, you know? And at the end, sincerely, some of us, myself and my wife, we got so frustrated that we said, look, you need to focus on your studies. Up till now, the 2 of them are still drawing. So I don't know what we can advise me as a parent. What should I do? I've tried and tried, and I couldn't just get over it.
Thank you for that. And I think that's, I'm glad you asked, because as a parent, I think you encourage them, you know? I know, I talked to so many students yesterday and got their stories about, how they came to the animation school or studio. It wasn't a school, these are established animators. And that was their story, that they were drawing and drawing, and in their studies, you know, they could bring their studies home, and they'd have drawings all over their studies, and they get in trouble for not doing their work. Uh-oh, I have it. Oh, for not doing. They would get in trouble for not doing their work. But there they were, established animators, and they just, if they have it in their heart and they have it in their soul, then there's not much you can do, you know? A lot of them did, to please their parents. Like one was also an engineer. Many of them took some science classes or economic classes, engineering classes, and they said, oh, those are the worst years. These are adults now talking about their childhood. But even if hopefully, if they do what you like and take classes, because you can't learn enough. You know, there's a big world out there. There's a lot to learn. Everything will feed it to what they want to do. And maybe you can encourage them that that's the truth. But I would really say, let them draw, let them figure it out. It can happen. They won't get paid a lot. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have Ikeja. Please mute yourself and then ask your question. Ikeja, please unmute yourself. Okay, while that is going on, I've seen here from Benin City on the chat box, what was your toughest experience coping with career building and balancing family responsibilities?
Well, that's a good one. Thank you. Here's my toughest experience. It's, you know, it's tough balancing, you know, all along. It's tough balancing your career and your family. So I have one son, and I found when my syndication ended in 2005, he was a toddler by then. I had a little bit of a studio in my home, and once the syndication ended, I went full on into being a mom. And I let the cartooning, kind of go by the wayside for a while. And well, I didn't have a choice because my syndication ended. And it ended because, what happens if you get, the fewer papers you have, the less money the syndicate makes. And you have this agreement with them, if it gets down to a certain number, that either one of us can stop, you know. And then, you know, they chose, I was down to maybe a dozen papers when they said, okay, maybe we should end this. And then by then I had this kid, so I was, focused on that. All of it's hard, you know, all of it's hard trying to balance all that. What's the toughest? I can't think of one because I try to put those kind of memories behind me. I'm sure that's why I can't think of one. I'm optimist, right?
Okay, yes, Ikeja is ready now.
Okay, thank you so much for the chance. As someone who has a background in creative arts and quite interested in creativity, I know there's something called inspirations when you are making your artworks. You as a cartoonist, what are there any particular themes or topics that you find yourself drawn to when you're creating your works?
Thank you.
Yes. Well, now that I have the freedom of just doing what I feel, I watch the news constantly. I read the Times, the Morning, and the Washington Post, you know, the 7 every morning. And a lot of times that's where editorial cartoonists get their inspiration. It's like ripped from the headlines, you know. So whatever really puts fire in me, I know I have to talk about. So I keep a notebook and I write down whatever it is. Currently I have a strip. Sometimes I write strips and I don't even have the time to put them out. But the idea of women lost access to abortion in America has made me that's something that I feel a need to talk to, and I talked about it through those years when I was syndicated, and that's the most blowback I got, you know, from the audience and you know, the readerships or the editors. I got the most blowback for discussing that issue. So whatever I feel strongly about is what I do. So I just kind of trust my gut.
All right, we go to Maiduguri right now, if you don't mind. Maiduguri.
Hello, good morning from Maiduguri.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Please, can you share a bit about your journey as a cartoonist specialist? How did you get started in this field? That is one. My second question is, what challenges did you face along the way, and how did you overcome them to reach the level of success you have today? Thank you.
And then if I may quickly add, you say, were there times you felt like giving up on career? That was another question from Benin City.
Okay, thank you. I never felt like giving up. I had to be quit. I had to have the syndicate say, we're going to stop this. So I didn't feel like quitting.
This is not clear. So
To answer the other questions, I was asked to come up with a comic strip. I was really fortunate. And had I not had a dad who was a cartoonist, and without somebody saying, can you do a comic strip for our magazine? I probably would not have said yes, but I had seen it done. And I say this often, that if my dad had been a bus driver, I probably wouldn't have said, yes, I could do it, because I had not seen it done. I saw the work ethic it took. I watched my dad write and draw and ink. So that's how it happened. And then in hindsight, I realized that I was getting training all my life. My dad, did a daily strip, which was a lot of work. And one of the things that was most tedious about putting his strip together was putting the shading on, it's really a film. It's not like a shading, it's a film that you put on, the actual original art. And you cut out the shape of the character to put the dots on their face so you can see the color, see that they have color. And that was a tedious job. You don't have to think, you just have to be able to do it. And he gave my brother and myself a test. And I won because my brother was terrible. But my brother's a fisherman, and he's also a educator. But I won the test, so I ended up having that job. So I was being trained to be a cartoonist, even when I didn't realize it. I looked at it as a way of making money. So I made, my dad paid me like $5 every other week to do the zip-a-tone, that's what it's called. And frankly, when it came my turn to do a comic strip, when it came my turn to do a comic strip, I used the same process. I wrote it, I penciled it in, I put it on a light box, I inked it in, and I applied what was available then, which was Letrotone, same as zip-a-tone, but things change over years. So did I ever? I think I answered the question, but I took that last question first, and I'll just repeat. No, I never thought about stopping.
There's no more question online. Over to you, Commander.
Thank you. Oh, it's back. So do we have any more questions here? If not, we can thank one here. Any other questions? Oh.
I'll just say it really loud. Are there other women cartoonists, American women cartoonists that we should be looking at? Paying attention to? Do you recommend anybody that we should be watching?
Yeah, there are many cartoonists that are women cartoonists that have come up, and I'm pleased to say there are Black cartoonists that have come up. There's a woman called I want to say Bianca Eunice, and she's part of a collection of women cartoonists that is syndicated. And there's another woman named Steens, Steez, I think. I think her name is Christine, and she goes by Steens, and she's an incredible artist who is also now syndicated. So I actually have opened the door, Yay!
And we can share those names with our American Spaces.
Yes,
As well as your links to your work.
thank you.
And of course, before we close, I'm going to let you show us and show the audience your book.
Yes.
Do you have a few words you want to just sort of explain about the process of creating the book and when you did it and why?
Yes, thank you. So this is my book that just came out last year. It's been out since actually 1 year. It came out in February last year. And it's a collection of my strips from 91 to 2005. I've been trying to keep my dad's legacy alive. So I've been whenever I get called to do something, I do it because just so I can still talk about him. And I got called from this publisher, Drawing Quarterly, and they said, we need to do a collection of your books. It's like, really? And I was like, they make such beautiful books. And I was wondering how they're going to make I said it, and how they're going to make a beautiful book of my work. And they said, please, we can do that. And they did. I'm giving to the Consulate. But it is a collection of my work, but it also tells my story in here. And it talks about the characters in here. And it also does a collection of all the stories through the years. And in the back, I'm very proud to say, they let me show some of my newer things, that passed Syndicated. And they had me write an essay in there. And there's an essay by, a professor, who puts my work in historical context. Hey, this is my husband and there's my son. But I share that. And this is the essay by, a professor who puts my work in historical context. And, there's my family and my were it not fors, who are people that I think, oh, wait, do it again.
Great, thank you so much for this. And as Barbara mentioned, she's gifting it to the consulate. So we will have it in our American space here at the consulate. So if anybody online wants to come in and see it, it's really a fantastic and beautifully done book. So, oh, thank you. They put it on the cover.
There it is. Yes.
Thank you. Great. So thanks again. Thank you, Barbara Brandon-Croft, for joining us and speaking about your life's journey during this Black History.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing me here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's a good photograph.
Yeah.